I met Norm Bass about 5 years ago at the YMCA pool in Westchester, California. I was drawn to the then 75-year-old not only because he was a nice man, but because he was hilarious. I would hear him talk about sports or anything else for that matter, with a style that he describes as woofing, and it cracked me up. Then, one day, on the bulletin board at the YMCA, I saw a Get to Know Our Members printout about Norm. I'm a Venice, California-born, Los Angeles-based sports fan, one that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Hello, sports historians. Welcome to audio video podcast episode number 35 of Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. We sincerely hope everybody's okay during this incredibly difficult time in our country. We also hope some entertainment and inspiration can come from the guests we bring to these podcasts. I'm quite confident you'll find that is the case with the subject of our four-part series, Norm Bass, a person I'd like to think of as a hidden gem in sports history. What was on that Get to Know Our Members flyer about Norm on the Westchester YMCA bulletin board? Well, it said that he was the first post-World War II Black American to play professional baseball and football, and that he won a bronze medal at the Sydney Olympic Games at the age of 60 in table tennis. Wait, what? Crazy town, right? Okay, before we go too far, we need to say hello to the producer of the top video podcast in the Sentinel Adobe corridor, the director of the SSDL5 slate of shows on YouTube, and the winner of the 1997 New Mexico State Sports Information Department Eddie Growth Award. My quarantine partner for life, Christine Jimbo.
Hello. He always tries to make me laugh every time he introduces me.
That's a solid award.
That was a good one. I'm here to remind all of our listeners to go to the website to find links to all of our social media and to our East Bay online store that will debut very, very soon, within the next week. And to get there, you go to sportsstoriespodcast.com. You can always do a search for Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. That's Denny like the restaurant, Lennon like the Beatle, to get to us. But sportsstoriespodcast.com is where you will find everything you need.
That's right. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsStoriesDL, like my initials, at SportsStoriesDL. My Twitter followers have grown 73% over the past 10 days. No joke. Don't miss out. Blowing up at SportsStoriesDL. Okay, back to Norm Bass. Norm is my kind of guy. Always fun to chat with and popular with everyone at the Y, from the staff up front to the lifeguards and the fellow members, men and women, especially the ladies. He goes about 6'3", now slightly stooped at 80 years old. He's handsome and charismatic, and he's been dealing with advanced rheumatoid arthritis for his whole life. So what I admire so much is his determination to get a workout in every day but Sunday, at that YMCA pool. He lost much of his hearing as a 10-year-old, but he makes sure there's never any dead air when he talks to you. I've never wanted to interview a person as much as I wanted to interview Norm Bass. In this first episode, we learn about his family moving around 1950 from the South to Vallejo, California, a city then of about 30,000 that was 30 or so miles north of Oakland. Norm was a star athlete at Vallejo High School along with his brother Dick Bass, who was 2 years a senior. Dick Bass you may remember as an all-pro running back for the Los Angeles Rams in the 1960s. Norm was a gifted athlete that led his Northern California team to a victory in the prestigious high school football shrine game. He could throw a baseball in the 90s and hit the ball further than anybody had ever seen. He ended up with the Kansas City A's and the bigger-than-life world of A's owner Charles Finley. And, well, as you will come to find out, Norm is a storyteller of the highest order and will do a far better job of it than me. Before we start the interview, I want to recognize Norm's son, Norman Delaney Bass III, author of the book Color Him Father, An American Journey of Hope and Redemption, for background information and the images you see on the video podcast in the introduction of these 4 episodes. I highly recommend the book. Thanks are also in order for the owners and the staff at the coffee company in Westchester, California, for allowing us to interview Norm at his favorite restaurant. So now it's time for what we trust will be a very special 4-part series, and that we hope you enjoy as much as we enjoyed putting it together. From the coffee company in Westchester, California, where Norm's USA Table Tennis Hall of Fame plaque sits proudly above his favorite table, here is part 1 of our interview with the one and only Norm Bass. Please note this interview was recorded on February 27th, 2020. I'm glad we're doing this as a coffee company because you come by here most days, huh?
6 days a week.
It's on your way back from the Y towards your house?
At the Y, Westchester Y, on the way down, I go home this way. So I stopped in here 2000, and I've been having breakfast ever since.
I think the Y. Now I know the Y is where we met, but I think we just kind of had polite conversation, and then the Y had a note up on the wall that said that you played pro football and baseball and so forth. And I asked you, and you said you looked me up.
Yeah, but we never did talk about none of this
No,
stuff.
we didn't.
I didn't talk about. I thought you already knew a little bit about that.
I didn't.
Okay,
And
you were surprised to hear that.
I
right?
sure was, and enthused because I grew up such a sports fan, and grew up in this city, and so once you came down and then Dick Bass, I knew who he was because we were big Rams fans growing up, so all of that was exciting for me. So Norm, I wanted to kind of start from the beginning, I suppose. I know you're born in Georgetown, Mississippi, right?
No.
Laurel,
Mississippi.
Laurel.
My brother was born in Georgetown.
Okay.
Left there when I was two or three. My dad brought us out here when we were about that age. We went to California, Northern California.
Yeah. So your father grew up in effect, Jim Crow South, Mississippi, 1914.
Same thing
born?
that they had. Yeah. It was all segregated, all that.
Yeah. So and you ended up in Northern California, and I think the shipping and maritime industry was booming about that time.
They had jobs that was open there in Vallejo, and my dad was trying to find a job out of Mississippi, so he went to Vegas at first. Then he finally migrated to Vallejo, California, and he got a job there, and that's how we got out of here.
Tell me a little bit about growing up in that part of the country and just your
you
being
talking
a
about
child.
Northern California?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know anything about discrimination or racism or nothing like that. Everything I learned, it was real. And my dad never did talk about none of that stuff. And so we grew up with sports, and that's all I ever wanted to do was just play sports. I wasn't interested in raids or protests or none of that stuff. I just wanted to play ball, man.
Well, you were now 10 years old, and you had you almost died, Norm.
Yeah, I know.
Tell me about the meningitis, right?
One morning, man, I woke up and my eyes were closed, and I could take my finger and pull the lids up, and I could see, but I couldn't hardly get it up. So I told my dad when he was going to work that I was blind, I couldn't see. So my dad always knew I played little games and everything. So he said, "Why don't you stop playing?" I said, "Dad, I can't see." So he didn't go to work. He put me in the car, took me to the hospital, and it was a small hospital. They did not quite know what was wrong with me. But this one doctor, Dr. Palm, a lady, she said, "We got to take you to a bigger hospital. I hope this is not what I think it is."
Wow.
So they took me down there, and they said I had meningitis. And I didn't know what that was. And Fort Ord and all the Navy bases and Army bases had that. And 98% of the people died with this stuff.
Yeah.
But at 10 years old, you don't know nothing about death and stuff like that. So when I'm talking to my dad, he took me down there and they put me in the hospital. And while I'm talking to him, all of a sudden I don't hear nothing. All my hearing left, 100%. I can't hear nothing. He's at the window. I thought he was playing games too. He's talking with his mouth like that, and I couldn't hear. A couple of days passed, and I was paralyzed. Then a couple more days come along, and I couldn't talk. And I'm laying up in the hospital like that for about 3 months. And they came in the room, and bunch of priests and all this coming in. They reading the 23rd Psalms in my room.
Wow.
And they told my dad I was going to die. I wasn't going to make it. And I'm still don't know what's going on or nothing. So I'm laying up in the bed, and they kept working with me. Finally, it left me with loss of hearing in one ear and a little bit in the other ear. And I had to learn how to walk all over again.
Unbelievable.
And the eyesight came back, but the hearing did not. And so, but I was so wrapped up in baseball and football and sports that didn't even make a dent in my life to make me not want to play.
Norm, I'm gonna give credit to your son.
Yeah.
Norman Bass III for
Right.
writing this great book, and I want to read from it for a second. It said, and when I refer to Junior, that's you, right? No sooner
That's
was
it.
Junior admitted, his health started deteriorating at a rapid pace. His prognosis grew grimmer, and it was becoming increasingly clear he was not going to survive. As he inched closer and closer to death, a clergyman was summoned to his bedside. That's so
true.
scary as a parent too. Just being a parent, I couldn't imagine. Your folks must have really been beside themselves.
Well, the rest of my family was quarantined.
Wow.
They wouldn't let them. They didn't know how I got this, or was it infective, or could other people get it. They didn't know.
Wow.
They still don't know. I was the only one in this town that got this.
Wild.
Yeah, that's why they came down here to check me out from all the Army bases. And they was trying to find out how did I get that. My dad wasn't in the service or nothing like that.
Literally 1 in a million here, Norm.
Yeah.
Yep. So, Norm, now you're growing up in this area and you're playing sports. And from what I understand, your father, I think he said something to the effect of, you don't play nothing? Like it's about playing. I mean, it's about going for it and really playing to the highest level you can.
Well, my dad always told me you got to be the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be twice as good as the other guy. Because that's when I first started understanding something about discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
He said they're not going to let you play if you're just average. You have to be better than the other guy by a long ways, or it's obvious. Mm-hmm. So me and my brother, we trained hard, real hard. We worked out. We ran 3 or 4 miles every morning going to high school. We get up and run around this mountain. We run. The rest of the guys be asleep. But when the game start, we could outlast them. We had more stamina. We were just better than they was. They wasn't in no shape. We was. So that was my whole thing right there, was to be ready to play.
Now you went to, what was the middle school called that you went to? Was it like Vallejo's Middle School or something?
It was Highland School. It was a school that was not in my neighborhood. I was taken out of my neighborhood because I couldn't hear.
I see.
At this particular school, they had a special class for lip reading.
I see. Okay.
And I had to go all the way across town, out of my neighborhood, and I went over there for 4 years. And they had one class that I had to take so I could, in case I lose all my hearing, I could read lips.
I see.
So they sent me there.
You now and you've retained that skill throughout your life.
Yeah, I can still read them, but I don't tell people that when I do, they talk like this. That's what they do, and it gets silly. A lot of times I'll be speaking at a banquet, and I tell them, I said, now be careful what you're saying. I can read lips up here. And they be talking about me, cussing me out there.
Note to self.
And sometimes I repeat what they say, and they get embarrassed. Because I can read lips,
I was going to say, yeah, I was going to say, I noticed that you didn't listen to me, nor did you listen to the reading of my lips.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can do it.
But you were processing. I saw you. So now tell me about being at Vallejo High School and being an Apache. Did you enjoy your high school years there?
That was the most fun in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I would have played even in the pros free. You didn't have to pay me. I would have just give me the lunch money and tell me where they're playing. That's how much I love sports. And any kind of sport there was, I could play anything. I wasn't a football player on a basketball court, and you look and say, that guy's not a basketball player, but I look like the rest of them. I could play the game, whatever they was doing there.
Your father taught you a lot of sports. He had a background. He was a boxer, right? He's a prize fighter?
He was a black middleweight champion of Mississippi.
Unbelievable. But he was familiar with all sports, and he brought you boys up playing a lot of sports.
He played semi-baseball, pro baseball in Vallejo, and we used to shag balls for my dad and all that.
Now, I want to the listeners, I want them to understand who Dick Bass was. So he's 2 years older than you.
About 2, yeah.
Yep, and he's built a little different. You're a little taller, and
he's about 5'9", and in high school he was 165.
He was he set the state high school record, 37 touchdowns in 1954 as a high schooler, and then All-American at College of the Pacific, now Pacific, and then second pick in the draft to the Rams. 3-time Pro Bowler. So he had
actually he was number 1, but the number 1 that they had went to the other league.
Oh, I see. Who was the
number? But in the NFL, he was the number 1 draft with the Rams.
Do you remember who the number 1 was?
Billy Cannon.
Oh, Billy Cannon.
Billy Cannon.
Like Louisiana or something?
He went to LSU.
LSU.
And he gained about 600 yards. Dick gained about 2,000 or whatever, and he won the Heisman. Dick didn't win that. Dick should have won that, but a black dude had never won that title before at that time.
That's something.
The first guy to ever win it was 1960.
Okay.
It was a guy named, what was his name, Ernie.
Ernie Davis.
Yeah,
right?
He died.
Syracuse?
He died in camp.
Syracuse.
He was sick. He had leukemia or something. He died.
Yeah.
He went to the same school Jim Brown.
And then Jim Brown followed him. Okay. So so we're talking 50s. You guys are at Vallejo High School, and you play. So you're playing all 3 sports.
4.
That's what is track.
Track, baseball, basketball, and football.
Football season.
Football season, everything that was seasonal, I would play.
Mm-hmm. And one interesting thing I found when you were in your senior year, right? You were picked to play in the Shrine game.
That's it.
Right? So tell me a little bit about getting picked for that. That was when it was North versus South?
It was the North against the South. South had beat the North to death for about 6-7 years in a row. The North had never won. My coach had to sell me to the other coaches because Vallejo didn't have nobody to go down there. So he told them that I was the best defensive player in Northern California. That's what he told them.
So it's Northern California versus Southern California, and the Shriners were like
that's who sponsored.
Would put on the tournament.
Yeah.
And would put on the big game. Now, Norm, did they have like a week of practice or something like that?
We practiced about 2 weeks. You know where we practiced at Old Pepperdine over there in Vermont. It was Pepperdine College. That's where we practiced right there.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And you seemed to win every position. Like you were the best kicker.
Well, what had happened there, we had a quarterback that they had picked, and he was a little bitty guy, pretty frail. Mm-hmm. And he would get knocked down easy in the scrimmages, and he couldn't throw the ball. Like the write-up said, he was All-American, but he didn't do it. So I could play fullback, halfback, any position. So we only had one fullback. When he got tired, I'd fill in for him. And they would take the ball and pitch it back to me, and I'd run and I'd throw a pass. And I kept completing this thing, 30 yards, 40 yards. And the coach said, Norm, you ever been a quarterback behind the tee? I said, yeah, in the 10th grade. He said, get back there. And I got back there and got a couple of snaps. So when the game started, I'm the starting quarterback.
Wait, and you won the kicking position as well, right?
Well, that was automatic. And they couldn't. I was kicking good then. And I was doing it.
And then on defense, they played you on defense?
I was a safety man on defense. I was a safety on defense. I played fullback. I played quarterback. I intercepted a pass in that game. I kicked 3 extra points, kicked off, did all that.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you a commercial.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon aims to bring its subscribers interesting, unique, and uplifting stories. You can find us at sportstoriespodcast.com. We drop audio, video podcasts every Thursday and go live at 5 on YouTube 4 nights a week. That's Sports Stories with Denny Lennon.
And now back to our interview.
Okay, go over that again. I want to hear your stats again.
Okay. I kicked off 3 times. We scored 3 times, 21 points.
Okay.
Okay. I intercepted a pass in that game.
Okay.
I played fullback in that game. I threw a touchdown pass,
70-something
70-some yards.
Yep.
And when they got down to the trophy, my name wasn't mentioned. Now, here's where discrimination
I don't mean to laugh, but it's so terrible.
Well, here's where it really kicked in, where I really understood what that was all about.
Okay.
And, man, I had headlines in the paper the next day, right on the top. Norm saved the South. He saved the Bass's name. He did this. And at the bottom it said, and so-and-so was picked for the MVP. I said, you kidding me?
Do you know who the MVP was?
Yeah. It was a guy named Ted Kano.
That's right, he was.
I'll never forget all this.
San Francisco Poly, something like that. Yep. Oh,
Ted Kano. And I remember the guy I threw the pass to. It was the guy that went to El Cerrito, Willie Woods.
Oh, Willie Woods. He played UCLA.
Well, it's a different guy. It's a different guy. But, now, I almost went to UCLA.
You played this game at the Coliseum, though, right?
At the Coliseum.
Where your brother eventually would become a star.
Dick played the year before I did.
Okay. Now, you went to you almost went to UCLA?
Yeah. But they wanted me to play football, and at this point in my life, I thought I was a better basketball player. And COP offered me a basketball scholarship. So I went to COP on a basketball scholarship.
Here's something, Norm, that was said about you while you were still in high school. It said, Norm Bass, and I think this comes from a writer or something. His name's Don Gleason. Norm is a superior athlete in his own right. He's a graceful 6'1", 180-pounder. The lethal young man possesses multiple skills to make good in just about any athletic endeavor. Some envision him as a major league pitcher. Scouts literally drool when they see the big fella effortlessly steam his swift delivery. Scouts demand size, a good fastball, and poise in their mound prospects. Norm fulfills those requirements. There's no reason in the world Norm shouldn't be a top-flight hurler in the majors. So that's them talking about you when you throwing 95 miles an hour as a high schooler. How come basketball was more prominent in your mind than baseball at this time?
Well, everybody practice basketball in the backyard. It's easy. You don't need a whole bunch of guys to play basketball. Baseball, you need 5 or 6 guys at least. So when I went out there to play basketball, it was fun. And plus, I could shoot real well. I could shoot real good.
Okay.
And I remember we played the exhibition game against the Trotters.
Against the Globetrotters?
Yeah.
How old were you?
Oh, I was playing about 22.
Is that right?
And at halftime, I had 37 points.
Come on.
No.
37.
And they came in the dressing room, Goose and all them, said, hey, Red, that's what they call me, Red, you're going to have to lighten up. We're supposed to win this. Yeah.
They wanted you to act like you were on the Washington Generals.
They wanted me to play with them. They tried to sign me.
Really?
But the owner of the baseball team wouldn't let me do it.
That's great.
Charlie O said, no, get off the basketball court.
Oh, wow. Let me ask you something, Norm. I want to get back to that because the Globetrotters are one of my seminal moments as a kid that made me love basketball. But I kind of want to follow you now. So you wanted to play hoops, so College of the Pacific offered you a basketball scholarship.
Basketball scholarship.
And so when you went there, did you also play football?
Oh, yeah.
Because it was the fall.
It was seasonal.
Because it was the fall.
I ended up playing football anyway, even though I was on a basketball scholarship.
And did you play quarterback in football as a freshman? You probably played JV, right?
We had to play freshman football. We go undefeated. I'm the quarterback.
Okay.
We go undefeated.
Yep.
And so when I get to a sophomore here, where the stuff starts.
Yeah.
I'm undefeated. The man called me in the office and said, Norm, we want to talk to you. I said, well, go ahead and tell me you're going to move me somewhere else. You don't want me to be the quarterback. They said, no, Norm, it's not that. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Black dude couldn't be a quarterback in them days. Couldn't be a center. Couldn't be a linebacker. Because those positions called for a lot of thinking. Yeah. And black people can't think, so they said, we don't want to put him there.
Apparently thinking didn't involve a 9-0 record.
Yeah, but that didn't mean nothing.
That just came from nowhere.
So I experienced that in my career and everything. But when I was coming along, we never saw Major League Baseball except on television.
Pacific League was like a
Well, the
AAA
Giants
kind of
was
league.
not out here then.
Right.
The Dodgers was not here. It was no major league team. It was a AAA baseball
AAA.
team was out here. Well, that's all we saw. So I didn't get the chance to see Willie Mays or Mickey Mantle and all them guys. I just read about them.
Did you have the minor league, like was it the Seals that were up your way in Vallejo area, or what minor league team was it?
It was none in Vallejo, but they had a team in Sacramento,
Okay.
and they had one in Stockton. But it was no AAA. You know, AAA is where Joe DiMaggio and all them guys played in that league.
So it wasn't long after you played, football at UOP or what was then COP that you headed for Kansas City.
Well, what had happened was that I got silly, and I had this girl pregnant.
Well, you're young. You're a young man.
I'm 17, 18 years old,
Sure.
17. And they made me get married.
Your
And
parents?
when I say made me, they gave me a choice. In those days, you had a choice to go to jail or marry the girl.
Wow.
So I went to Reno, Nevada, and got married.
Okay.
But I was feeling terrible. I wanted to cut my wrist and all that. Guys, my brother and all them guys was teasing me. I had to get out of there. So I signed a minor league contract.
Got a big 4K for it.
No, in them days, like I say, black dude didn't get no money, man. But I got $4,000. That was a lot
that's
of
not
money.
bad.
I got something.
That's good.
And most black dudes get shoes, inner soles for shoes.
So you got that, and you moved to Kansas City. What was the was that the first time like you'd been an extended period away from home and?
Well,
and,
that's
and
the
so
first
forth?
time I ever been out of the state
Out of
of
the state.
California since we've been here.
Sure.
And I was the first one in our whole town, that little town, that went on to play professional baseball. And I didn't know too much about that. And they sent me to Florida.
That was your first assignment for rookie ball?
I went down there. I was signed to a AA contract when I was 19. But the AA team was in Little Rock, Arkansas.
They weren't going to have you there.
Can't play there.
No.
So they sent me to Pocatello, Idaho, where I could play. And that's where I played my first year.
Were there any white people in Idaho?
Yeah. I'm
whole state.
looking for somebody that looked like me. But it wasn't so.
Wow.
And I never seen snow before either, too.
Was that a culture shock? I mean, I'm sure it was, but, I'm sure you had to make a lot of adjustments as a young man.
Well, I couldn't go in a lot of restaurants up in Idaho, man.
Yeah.
They still had all that stuff going on up there.
Wow.
The waitress didn't know how to say that she couldn't serve me. I said, what's the problem? I made her say it. She said, well, the owner said we can't give you food. I said, you kidding me? Let me tell you a story one time there. We were in Idaho, right? And the girls and boys, they work in the stands. They clean the seats. So me and this girl, we used to talk all the time at the ballpark, and we became friends. So she invited me to come to her house, meet her parents, and have dinner with her parents, right? And I'm in class C ball. This is C. But I'm better than the C ball, but that's the only place they could put me. So I'm sitting up there eating pheasant and stuff I ain't never seen. I'm eating it, and the rest of the people were eating, but they was eating fast, real fast. And they got all finished before I was halfway through, and I was wondering what's going on in here. So they go in the living room, and I'm sitting there. When I got through, they said, come on, Norm, come on in here. So I go in the room. They say, okay, what you do? You sing, you dance, what you going to do?
Oh, my gosh.
That's what
That
they
is
said.
awful. I don't mean I laugh out of
That's what they said to me.
disdain.
Boy, I was so mad I couldn't even see. That's what they asked me.
Goodness.
Oh
I mean,
my
they
gosh.
had never seen, been around black folks. And
I'm
when
sure.
they had read and heard, and that's what they asked me.
Man.
I said, you got to be kidding me.
This is before the Look Who's Coming to Dinner movie came out.
All that.
Yeah, before that.
This
You
is
had
in
to break the
50s.
ground
This
before.
is in the 50s.
Yeah, you had to break that ground. Boy, that must have been uncomfortable for you.
It was real bad. Well, in college, the white kids that came to COP came from little towns like Placerville, California. No blacks lived there, and the first time they ever saw a black person was at college.
Well, that's what college served that purpose for a lot of
then
people.
When I go out with them and talk to them, they would rub my hand and see would that come off. They would grab
Goodness.
that, and I'd take my shoe off, let them get my toes. I got silly with it.
No wonder you got kicked out of
I said,
restaurants.
any different? They said, no. I went through all that. But, I didn't get mad to the point where I'd go to jail over that. I just figured that these people just don't know.
These were the days, Normo, and you would be like, you go rookie ball, and then you go D, C, B, A, double A, triple A. Did you have to stop everywhere?
You had to spend at least, by the standards of baseball, was 3 to 4 years in the minor league before you can come to the big league.
Yeah, like even Maury Wills didn't get on the Dodgers roster until he was like 27.
10 years.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
But Willie Mays even went to the minor league.
Right.
But Ernie Banks never did go to the minor league.
So every franchise might have had discretion over it, but that's generally
Well, he played in the black league. That was
I see.
enough
He played in the
experience
Negro
he
leagues.
had,
Okay.
and he was awful good. But I was ready before they called me up.
When you were in the minor leagues, Norm, is that when any of your arm trouble started?
It started in 1959.
Mm-hmm.
I went home for 3/4 of the year and didn't pitch that year. I pitched in 58.
Mm-hmm.
Pitched in the Winter League, 58. Great season. No trouble. 59 when the arm trouble started. In 1959, I had to go to the different doctors. They sent me to the Mayo Clinic. They sent me to Johns Hopkins. They sent me all over the United States.
And at this time, you were pretty much just throwing fastball?
Yeah.
So
Fastball.
nothing else till you got to the
there was
bigs.
no such thing as Tommy John or none of that.
Sure, of
when
course
your
not.
arm go bad, they say, well, that's it, son. Take a couple of aspirins to go home.
What and then so you'd play in these minor leagues and then you'd come home for extended period like in the summer or like late summer, fall or something like that? Would you come back home?
The season was over early in September.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would go home and have to get a job
Sure.
because 6 months of playing baseball didn't pay enough to cover the year.
Had your family moved down to Los Angeles at this point because Dick was on the Rams? Is that why?
Well, we moved to California in the 40s.
Well, sure. No, I meant, did they move from Northern California to Southern California at this point?
No,
Not yet.
never did.
Oh, never did. Okay.
No, my mother and father stayed in Vallejo.
When did you start staying in Los Angeles area?
1960.
Oh, about 60. Okay.
Me and Dick was with the Rams first year, and me and him lived together. And we was close, so we lived together all them years.
So it's 1961, and this is the year you get called up to the A's. Is this correct?
What had happened was that they called me and told me they was going to invite me to come to camp. Invite. That means that you could go down there and they want to see was you good enough to play.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm one of them kind of dudes. I don't do nothing halfway. So I started pitching in these little semi-pro leagues and getting my stuff real sharp. In the old days, the players didn't stay in shape all year. Mm-hmm. They'd come to spring training to get in shape.
Like that's what Shaq did.
All of them did that. But
Yeah.
when I come to Kansas City, I was ready to pitch.
You're ready to go.
And when I was throwing batting practice, they couldn't hit the ball. And I wasn't even throwing hard yet. And they was telling me, rookie, slow down. I said, well, I'm not throwing hard yet. They couldn't hit the thing. And I was so disappointed when I got to the big leagues because I thought those guys was better than what they was.
Sure.
Because I had this image of Mickey Mantle was bigger than life and all these guys. And I come to find out I could outrun them.
Right.
I could throw harder than the rest of them. I was in better shape, all that. But I didn't know that. I had nothing to compare it with.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories, along with thousands of people across the country, also supports the My Stuff Bags Foundation, a nonprofit that provides traumatized children with new belongings and new hope. Learn more at mystuffbags.org. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportsstoriespodcast.com. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course, and Wooden's Wisdom. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Original images by Sienna Lennon Photography. Sports Stories is produced by Christine Jimbo and Marley Rice. Sports Stories is edited by Bob McCall. Additional staff include Ray Castro, Teresa Dolan, Jake Downey, Carlos Haro, and Buck Magic Lennon.
Lonely days are gone, I'm coming home. Sports Stories is on at 5. Well, I don't care how much money I gotta spend. Got to watch Sports Stories again. Lonely days are gone, I'm coming home. Sports Stories is live at 5 on YouTube. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon. Catch it at 5 on YouTube.
Check it out, Buck.